Yeah. This is very comfortable. We are not going to. We need a drink. We need a drink. Yeah.
Dobar den. Welcome everyone, Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, to this event. Today's panel discussion, United for Europe's Future, presents an opportunity to reflect on shared experiences and envision a united European future through the lenses of EU enlargement, migration, and sanctions as tools for security and stability. By reflecting on the transformative journey of EU member states, we have Lithuania, Bulgaria, Greece, France, well, Germany. So by reflecting on the transformative journey of EU member states, the discussion aims to provide a deeper understanding of how the EU, its current member states, and the candidate countries can work collectively towards a secure, resilient, and prosperous Europe. Let me introduce our keynote speakers today. We have the ambassador of the EU, or the chief of the delegation of EU to North Macedonia, His Excellency Mr. Michalis Rokas. Welcome. Thank you for being with us today. We have the Vice Foreign Minister of Lithuania, His Excellency Mr. Simonas Šatūnas. Welcome as well for you. And His Excellency Zoran Dimitrovski, Deputy Foreign Minister of North Macedonia. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you for coming.
The idea is to start with an introductory, I would not name it speeches, but remarks by all three of the keynote speakers, and then open the panel for questions for me and for all of you present today here. So I'll start with the EU ambassador. We know the topic. Enlargement is maybe the most interesting and the most common for North Macedonia. And maybe one of the key questions that is debated in our public is can we really talk about a new momentum in the EU enlargement process at this moment?
Thank you very much, and welcome to everybody. Definitely yes is the answer, and there was already a new impetus and a new momentum from the previous EU Commission and EU leadership, because we all know that what happened with Russia's brutal invasion in Ukraine. So that made our strategic thinking to change, and in order to respond to the geostrategic realities, it was essential to come up with solutions. So I felt that it's not happening now, but this has been happening already after the invasion of Ukraine. And why enlargement already in the previous EU team, which now we have the transition and they will soon take over, happened already, is because we realized, and it was a brutal realization, that the EU has found itself at the moment at crossroads where its own security was at stake, but also at the same time, our economic prosperity, our value chains, they were also put into question. Therefore, enlargement is an obvious geostrategical thinking and choice, because at the moment where we bring into our European family the Western Balkan countries, plus eventually Ukraine, Moldova, and maybe Georgia, we make ourselves stronger. We make, on the economic part, our internal market stronger, our purchasing power bigger, our ability to defend uncompetitive practices and unfriendly practices by various countries in the world that they are after our prosperity is much bigger, but also it's a question of security. And this brutal war of aggression, I think it is a watershed moment, similar that Europe had to face back in 1989. It makes us, besides the strategic thinking, to come up with a web of new policies that would respond to these challenges of today. There's a lot of discussion also about the competitiveness of the European economy, its place in the digitalization and the new IT turfs that they are happening. So therefore, now, with the new mandate, we clearly saw President von der Leyen at the Bled Forum restating that enlargement is at the very top of the agenda. There will be a dedicated commissioner for enlargement. And I believe that all the EU has put into place a response to what especially the Western Balkans have been requesting for a long time, meaning this growth plan and growth agenda, which actually prepares the Western Balkans to progressively get the benefits of accession, and while the negotiations hopefully are ongoing. So there is a completely now focus on how we can make this growth plan work, especially here in North Macedonia. This is my team's and our main task. Also, we are working very closely with all the ministries and the Prime Minister, of course, and we have full exchanges, and we see how we can repurpose what it is planned. So there is a maximum benefit for the countries of Western Balkans. Referring to the other two topics, all are equally important. I will start with sanctions because it has to do, you know, I don't need to repeat that we have put unprecedented for the European Union sanctions against Russia. And besides the sanctions, we are looking also very closely to uncompetitive practices of other actors. The European Union cannot afford any longer to be naive. It cannot afford any longer not to react. And sanctions is one tool, but also it has to do with the supply chains and with the exports of dual use that they can be used, and they are used by Russia. So we are now looking and focusing, besides the 14 packages that we have already agreed, we are looking at how we can tackle sanctions circumvention, and this is an important matter. And coming to the last point of today's debate, which is migration, obviously these are one of the three things of utmost priority for the EU, besides enlargement and competitiveness and the Draghi report, and how we establish ourselves, re-establish ourselves and our power and our internal market to the world. But we all agree that a robust answer to the issue of migration has to be given. And we have the Migration and Asylum Pact that, after long and lengthy discussions among member states, came into application a few months ago, I think. And that, with response, I'm not going now to enumerate the areas, but it aims not only at having secure and robust borders, solidarity among member states, returning, let's say, ones who are illegally in the European Union territories, but also having an externalization of migration by having readmission agreements with partner countries as a priority, and other ways of enhancing of bilateral relations with a key aim. We want also to attract talent. So there is also a positive spin into that. But there is no doubt politically that the EU has struggled with this discussion and with this topic. And I am quite confident that, in the European Union, sometimes things take some time. This is the art of compromise, but this is a good pact. And hopefully we will see very soon, with its entry into application, tangible results. I'll leave it to that.
Thank you. Now, the Vice Minister of Lithuania. When we speak about migration, you have your own very unique experience with that issue. I think you can share it here with us, but also we can mention that Lithuania is already 20 years EU member state, which is really a quite good period. So the floor is yours.
Well, thank you so much. First of all, thank you for your time. Thank you for coming. Yes, I'm coming from Lithuania, which is this year we are celebrating being 20 years in European Union. And we can talk about enlargement a little bit. What does it mean for us, enlargement? What it meant for us in 2002, 2004? And what does it mean for us now and how we see the enlargement? I think enlargement for us was geopolitical movement. It was economic change and transition, but it was also the supremacy of rule of law. And when we talk about today European Union base is our common legislative environment, what we're doing. So I think that for us, this rule of law was critical and is critical because that makes much more trust in our business environment. And I think from 2004 until now, when we look at average GDP per capita, so at that time when we joined European Union, it was 46 of EU average. Now it's 94 of EU average. So you can see what kind of a transformative power and impact made on us. So for us, enlargement was, it seemed that it was returning back to Europe. And de facto it was, but also only now when we rewind the movie back, we understand what does it mean. It really meant a big change in economic structures, in legal environment. And I'm just, journalist was asking me what was the biggest challenge for us when we were negotiating and joining. Yes, we had some bilateral issues with some of our neighbors, but we put them aside and said, no, but strategic vision, that entire region has to move ahead with this enlargement process, because that was also a window of opportunity. It was really a window of opportunity. I think it were chances that we could slip, but we did not. And I know that you are debating here decoupling Albania and North Macedonia, but we were also decoupled. Estonia and Poland, they were first invited to start the process. And you can imagine when the Estonians are invited first, what happens in Lithuanian politics. It was emotions, but it was not easy. But we were able to catch up, and we were able really to conclude negotiations, entire process as a big bang, as a big group. So for us, enlargement was not only geopolitical, but economic and rule of law transition. And then in these years, we're also looking at enlargement as an absolutely historic opportunity. I think Russia's war on Ukraine just maybe consolidated what was a little bit in the backs of all of us, that we need to do something more, and this is the moment. But I'm concerned that we should not lose that momentum. And I think that new cycle, new institutional cycle, new commission, and President von der Leyen, she's putting absolutely right things on the political agenda. And it's going to be for us, for member states and for candidate countries, really to take that opportunity. If for any reasons that would be missed, it would be again so difficult to put back on the table something that was put off the table again. So I think everyone has to move fast, and everyone has to take, I don't know, maximum efforts, try to move with enlargement. It's going to be difficult. It's going to be difficult for the candidate countries. It's going to be difficult for the member states. It's going to be difficult for the European Commission, clearly, because it's going to be really huge workload. It will be a huge legal screenings, but it's doable. But it's definitely, we need to take opportunity now. And that's why in Lithuania, we are big supporters of enlargement, eastern part, Ukraine, Moldova, but on the same front with the Western Balkans. And we think that this enlargement as a transformative process will definitely change a lot the candidate countries, like it was with us. Now, maybe moving to the sanctions. I think sanctions also became part of EU law. It's really a part of EU law. I was myself in Brussels negotiating for some of the packages when I was ambassador to EU. Yes, now we have 14 packages, but these 14 packages are certain entities, people, but also there are horizontal sanctions. That means that we all member states, we committed to implement certain sanctions against certain countries or certain sectors. That's always very painful. But I'm also leading a team of sanctions implementation in Lithuania, because you can imagine we are on the border, external border of EU, not only guarding EU from various hybrid attacks or migration, but also how to effectively implement the sanctions. And when we look at our team, when we are chairing the meetings, we have, I don't know, 15 institutions sitting around, because every day we are looking how to better implement and how to close the loopholes. But 2 years ago, that table was empty. I mean, there were no sanctions policy at all. It was limited in some areas, but these 14 packages, now we're talking about the 15 packages we're de facto preparing. We are also talking about the sanctions alignment on Belarus, because Belarus is a loophole helping Russia to be supplied with what is necessary for the battlefield. So sanctions, I think that some people, even in Lithuania, they think it's for a while, but it's not for a while. You're absolutely right. We need to start looking at the world in the different eyes, and we are doing that. So that's why I think the sanctions, it's also legal instrument, but also value-based principle. So that's why for us, the candidate countries, when they are joining CFSP, then they are joining sanctions packages. That shows also the will, the principled value policy, normative policy. So sanctions is one thing to impact our Russia's aggression against Ukraine, but also to, I would say, to glue our European Union inside, and also to have partners around. So sanctions will stay for long, and unfortunately, we will be expanding not only against Russia and Belarus, but we see China. China is clearly helping Russia to be supplied with certain components for the battlefield goods. Clearly, we see that, and we have first Chinese companies on the sanction list. And now talking about migration, I think migration is also a super hot topic in European Union, in some old member states, in 7 member states, but in Lithuania as well. It was kind of a new thing that opened our eyes 2 years ago, when our border with Belarus, which is 700 kilometers, was being used by Lukashenko, pushing in people into European territory. And I remember some European colleagues were saying, please close the border. But I said, but do you imagine our border? Our border is 700 kilometers of the forest. There is no physical barrier there. There is, well, some swamps, but there is no sea, there is no physical barrier. But people were saying, close the border. How to close the border? And the people just walking through, they're stepping on European Union soil and then requesting asylum. And EU law at the time, it was, and it is to some extent pretty generous. We are trying to fix that for sure, but that was absolutely a new phenomena that our external challenges challenged us. They used people as an instrument to increase pressure on European Union. So I think that migration has a lot of various angles, but I agree with Ambassador that probably new pact on migration will start to be implemented and will create new opportunities how to tackle illegal migration. Yes, European Union needs legal migration because we need labor force, but we need to be able to, to be able to invite certain people or to check whom are coming, but we cannot be the objective of the illegal migration and pressure. So I think the migration topic is hot in Netherlands, in France, in Germany, but it's a reality in all EU member states because it became really an instrument of pressure on us. But I think we will tackle.
Thank you. Thank you in this first round of remarks. Now I will invite the Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade in the government of North Macedonia, Mr. Zoran Dimitrovski, to tell us and to share the perspective with the lenses of the current government in Skopje on the topic we are discussing today.
Thank you, Mr. Popetrevski. And please just switch on.
Yeah, sorry. And thank you, dear colleagues, for taking part in this discussion. And also at the beginning, I would like to thank Mr. Šatūnas for coming to Skopje and his delegation from Lithuania, from Republic of Lithuania, for political consultations that we are going to actually are scheduled for tomorrow between our two ministries, and also the opening of the office of the Embassy of Lithuania in Skopje, which is a very good step forward in enhancing our bilateral relations. And we are looking forward tomorrow for our political consultations and all of the events that are very challenging actually for us, and very it will have a great impact not only for our bilateral relations but also for our European integration, as we count on your support. So Republic of Lithuania is also a sort of a model country for us. If you think about the enlargement and you see Lithuania, how it democratized, how it became a champion of human rights, how it changed its economy. So it's a real model for us, although we are a country that is far away from that part of the world. So Baltic and Balkans are really far away, but we had a lot of things in common from the previous past. You've been a country that was in a Soviet Union. We've been also in a socialist country and a bigger country, Yugoslavia. So we have a lot of things in common when it comes to changing the totalitarian system into democracy, and also but we see that this enlargement process coming to the point of enlargement actually. We know that the enlargement have a great transformative capacity, but unfortunately for the last 10, 12 years, when only a couple of countries from Western Balkans like Serbia and Montenegro were candidate actually negotiating the accession. So we didn't see that much of this transformative capacity during the negotiating process. This was a problem we see in our neighborhood, the countries that they don't respect rule of law. There are some authoritarian practices going on. So the European Union lost this transformative capacity during this period of time. This is our vision actually, that this is what we see. So it is very important. If we talk about the war in Ukraine, was probably a turn point to wake up and to see that focusing on enlargement. So enlargement is probably the best policy how to make Europe peaceful and safe, and that that enlargement is the best instrument for democratization of societies, for peaceful coexistence between ethnic communities. And we know that now focusing on Ukraine, so Europe is focused on Ukraine, of course, everybody, the world is focused on what is going in Ukraine because of the Russian aggression there. And we understand that enlargement is becoming also a security matter. But if an enlargement is a security matter, if you all agree about that, so then Western Balkans have something to say in this respect, because the Western Balkans is a region where in the 90s we had these ethnic clashes and inter-ethnic wars, but also is the region where the powers like Russia have a lot of impact in some of the countries of Western Balkans. I don't say in each and every country. And it is also important that Europe really focuses on Western Balkans and on the enlargement. It is not an issue of, it is not a matter of absorption. I understand that being 18 million or so, the all Western Balkan countries are like one not that very big, let's say Romania has 23 million or so. So it's not an issue of absorption. As far as I can understand, as far as we are concerned from the point of view of policy of North Macedonia, actually, there was no decision in Brussels, actually in bigger cities of the European Union capitals. Although from the year of 2002, actually from Thessaloniki summit, 2003, there was a decision that both Western Balkans will become, all countries from Western Balkans will become members from the European Union. So there was a clear vision for that, but we didn't see much in that matter. So this war in Ukraine have a little bit waken up the society, not only societies, but political elites in Europe. And we think that this is a real momentum for catching the, so we should catch, not we as a country, but also Europe should catch the momentum. It's not only an issue, because if you see from Brussels, then you see that you should catch the momentum and get into the train which goes to Brussels and so on and so on. But we also think that Europe has to catch this momentum and go quickly in this, quickly, when I say quickly, it doesn't mean that it's a tomorrow, but in the certain period of time which is needed for adjustment of the all policies of these countries, the process of negotiations, which can be faster than it was than it was previously. For instance, if we see some countries that are negotiating for 10 or 12 years. So we think that still the decisions are not made within European Union capitals for setting the date on enlargement. We know that there is a problem of institutional reforms which are which are needed within the European Union in order to European Union to be ready actually for the enlargement. But we are also afraid that these institutional reforms may be an excuse for postponement of the enlargement. You have different views in different European capitals for these institutional reforms. There is a Franco-German proposal which is negotiated there, but we will see whether next spring or next summer something will come out of it. And we wouldn't like to see any country that is not that is actually blocking these institutional reforms in order to stop the enlargement process, actually, because it is very connected somehow. So, so to the point of enlargement, only one sentence, and I will later on answer the questions if needed for Macedonia. We as North Macedonia actually are very much in favor of being assessed from the European Union according to Copenhagen criteria. And this is our vision and goal, how this government actually sees that we should proceed on the road to accession to European Union. Otherwise, we wouldn't like actually these bilateral issues to be vetoed on bilateral issues, which has happened in the past for North Macedonia. You know that we are candidates from 2005, and the next year will be actually 20 years of our candidacy. From 2001, we have signed the Stabilization and Association Agreement. So it's been a long time, and so we are waiting still for the opening of the negotiations. Actually, there was one conference. The second one should be before we have a homework to do for constitutional changes, which I think we will speak about later. And we would like support from our partners in European Union, especially from Lithuania and also other countries. We know that we have support from the European Commission, but it is still the countries themselves that are having vote in Brussels, and the member states actually have their right to veto or to allow us to proceed in this European Union integration path. As for the issue of sanctions towards Russia, we are fully aligned as a country, 100% aligned with European Union foreign policy, although there are countries in the region and also who are candidates that are not aligned with this policy. We know that. We, as a small country, we think that it is also an issue of sharing values with European Union. We want to become members of the European Union, and we should share also these policies which are based on principles and values of the European Union. They are not based on some selfish ideas. As far as the economies of smaller countries like North Macedonia are concerned, sometimes, of course, it is a problem that you sanction, let's say, big markets like Russia. Ukraine is not a country where you can also, because it is in the war, you can have your exports, for instance, in terms of agricultural products that North Macedonia was exporting previously. And so we think that Europe should also understand and somehow compensate these smaller countries for the sacrifices that they are making in doing sanctions against Russia and Belarus as well. Yeah, because also Belarus is in the sanctions. We are also giving our best for support of Ukraine in this war. We've been actually allocating a lot of funds, and if you count on the scale, actually according to the GDP per capita, we are among the 5-6 European states giving military and other humanitarian support to Ukraine. So we've actually we gave them a lot of aircrafts, helicopters, tanks as well, this military support, but also a lot of humanitarian support, and we will proceed with this year. There is another, I think that till the end of next year there will be another package of this kind of support. As to the issue of migration, only a couple of sentences or one sentence. During the year when it all started, actually into 2015, the influx of the migrants and also some refugees from other borders, but mainly the migrants from our southern border, from Greece to our borders and up there to Europe. It was a decision probably of one of the biggest states in the European Union, Germany, to get these migrants. Actually, it was a policy. We all know that. But then it became somehow a problem. It became a problem for for there was a fear of terrorism that was in the streets in Paris, in other European capitals as well. So then another problem emerged with this different culture of migrants, which sort of jeopardized the culture or the culture itself in European Union countries. And now we see that European Union is coming to terms that there should be a control actually over all this process of migration, which is very important. And North Macedonia is on the border still, and this we can only envision that with this war going on the Middle East, and if it spreads, so we will see more of migrants in the region and refugees maybe from the war. And Europe is always a place where these people coming from these embattled countries are going through. So we signed this agreement for Frontex forces in Macedonia, coming the officers. There are around 130 officers now into. There was a big operation of Frontex in controlling the borders and also blocking the human trafficking and other important issues concerning the migration. And we are a contributor in this respect a lot.
Thank you, Mr. Dimitrovski. Let me ask now the EU ambassador. I will refer to a statement of the North Macedonia's Minister for European Affairs, Mr. Orhan Murtazani. In one of his latest interviews, he said that there is a provisional date for Montenegro for concluding the accession negotiations. The context was the decision of the EU to set so-called closing benchmarks for Montenegro for chapters 23 and 24, meaning that when you get closing benchmarks for those maybe two most challenging chapters, you are entering the final phase of the accession negotiations. So can you comment on this statement of the minister before I zoom in further and going to North Macedonia's issues?
I hope you don't expect me to comment because this is what he said. I am not aware of this, but so what matters?
It's not a date for entering EU, it's a provisional date for concluding the accession negotiations.
For every Western Balkan country, there is an annual progress report, and it will soon be revealed. We are waiting for them, and I think then we will check, as we say, check upon delivery. So, yes. So, but I think what matters is that enlargement is a process that it is based upon merit, first and foremost. The criteria and the acquis and the Copenhagen criteria, they are all known to all, and all depends on every country's individual effort pace, a lot of times taking painful, unpopular decisions, but it is the way it goes, fortunately, unfortunately. And I think Lithuania, any EU member state here, when they joined, they had to go through this. So
they joined one by one, all 10 at the same time, one by one.
It happened, but yes. But the country that I'm supposed to know best, it was alone back in 1981. So I think there can be variations. So I would be prudent and just see now the progress reports. The president also, Ursula von der Leyen, intends to do a Western Balkans tour later on this month. There will be a lot of momentum, a lot of discussions. So I think we will have more clarity about all 6 countries very soon.
Thank you. Mr. Šatūnas, we've heard the President of the European Council, Mr. Charles Michel, referring to 2030 as a potential date for at least one new member state of the European Union. Should at least provisional dates be set in order somehow to encourage really the candidate countries that the process is alive and there is a light at the end of the tunnel?
Well, I think that he's right. In principle, he's right. But it's not only to encourage the candidate countries, it's to encourage us all that the processes has not to be stalled by some external factors. I mean, setting benchmarks or setting dates is a good thing to energize us all. Because if we look back, yes, in Western Balkan, there was not a big progress for the last, what, 15 years, 12 years, I guess. Why? Because of various reasons, internal, bilateral, overall capacity of European Union in the member states. But I think setting some targets or at least visions is not a bad thing. And I think in general, enlargement will continue being a big topic for the next 5 years. But I think our Ukrainian friends, they are even much more ambitious, which is not a bad thing, because it's probably Deputy Minister can also testify. It's so difficult to keep your people, your institutions motivated to do the reforms. And especially when certain chapters are being opened, because there is a sequence and logic, you know, first fundamental chapters has to be opened, and then you can open the other ones, and then the other institutions are sitting and waiting. But how to motivate them that they should not wait for 10 years? So that's why I think we joined also German and Slovenian initiative about having qualified majority about opening clusters, not about closing negotiation clusters. But for us, we always were very cautious about lifting QMV, unanimity to QMV, but just to have some triggers for the process to move, either dates or some other instruments, is a good thing, because we really need to take the opportunity of this historic window opportunity. We all say that we need enlargement, so let's do it. So let's invent, or let's focus on that. I can again restate that in our enlargement process, we also had a very difficult times, not only because Estonia has started first, but because also had a bilateral issues. But we were able to put aside for the bilateral track, for the much more intensified dialogue. Then we also had another huge thing that old member states were asking: you should close the nuclear power plant that we had inherited from the Soviet occupation. That was a huge power plant, and it was delivering sometimes up to 90% of electricity for Lithuania. And you can imagine that for Lithuanian politicians to commit to close this power plant, that seemed like a political suicide. But there was a unanimous support and agreement in the country that we have a much higher objective to reach, to become the members of the European Union. So we all committed to close that power plant. And also we were not left alone, because the European Union committed to help us decommissioning power plant, then to doing the energy system transition. So I think setting all these targets, ambitions is not a bad thing, as it allows bicycle to be running.
Thank you. Mr. Dimitrovski, we all know that there is a deal, a package of documents that was agreed by the previous government of North Macedonia, Bulgaria, and the EU back in July 2022. It consists of, as I said, several documents: negotiating framework, conclusions of the General Affairs Council, protocol to the good neighborly agreement with Bulgaria. But we also know that this is something that is not acceptable for the current government of North Macedonia, which is clearly stated by not only by the Prime Minister, but also by other officials. What is your plan? How you will overcome this situation in order to, you say, open accession negotiations, although they are formally opened, to continue with accession negotiations with opening clusters?
Thank you for the question. First of all, it is not that only the government is against all of these documents. Actually, the negotiating framework, the council conclusions, and the protocols on the treaty with Bulgaria, but also the 80% of Macedonians, and also the 70% of all citizens in the country, if you count both Albanians, Macedonians, and other minorities. So, and the government got a clear mandate actually campaigning on this issue as well during the last elections. So it will be a treason for this government to enter into the negotiating process and to adopt constitutional changes, not changing a single word from all of these documents, or not trying to reach with the dialogue, not trying to reach a solution with our neighbor Bulgaria on the things that are very sensitive and that are concerning the identity of Macedonian people. So what is our plan? We have a very clear plan, and we don't hide it. Actually, we are openly stating it. We have offered one of the possible solutions. We didn't say that this is the solution and nothing else, but we said that this is one possible solution, as was our treaty agreement, Prespa agreement with Republic of Greece, that the constitutional changes should be adopted now and enter into force after the accession protocol or accession treaty signed by all countries when we become members of European Union. We know that for the time being, actually, as we hear from different countries and from Bulgaria, it is not acceptable for them, because they have already signed documents from the previous government of North Macedonia, which we think that it was wrong to sign these kind of documents, because our goal is not only to open negotiations, because as we heard, negotiations are opened, but we didn't start the opening the clusters and negotiating substantially on different clusters and chapters, but also to have a clear and predictable finish of these negotiations. If we are talking about Copenhagen criteria and how to actually rule of law, market policy.
Can we really talk about the predictability in a way that the government of North Macedonia is talking about? Because in the definition, the accession process is unpredictable. I mean,
no, I'm not talking about. It is unpredictable if you count that each and every country can veto you, but it is this problem that we are facing now. If we are vetoed on the Copenhagen criteria, then we are not happy with that, but we know that it is our problem. But if we are vetoed, for instance, if we speak about when we speak about the treaty with Bulgaria that we have on good neighborly relations and the friendship, so this treaty nowhere mentions the constitutional changes, and it was later on added to the negotiating framework within these protocols as well, and also in the council conclusions. So it was already a renegotiation of a treaty that we had with Bulgaria. So it doesn't mean that any treaty between two countries, there is no possibility to renegotiate a treaty. As we have done with Greece, there was an agreement between Republic of Greece and North Macedonia from 1995, as far as I can remember. It was the year. There was an agreement that Greece will support us in our road if we were changing our flag in these times, if you remember. And it happened later on that we were vetoed by Greece to become a member of NATO. So, so we think that all the treaties, we pacta sunt servanda, of course, we should respect all treaties, but treaties have evolved in the meantime, and treaties, some parts of the treaties can be also renegotiated, because we are not trying to renegotiate something which is out of any principles. These are the very principles of the European Union. We want to be assessed according to Copenhagen criteria, not by bilateral issues, which do have, by the way, there are many countries which have bilateral candidates that have bilateral issues with different countries. We know also what is going on with Serbia and Kosovo in this process of negotiation, the Bosnia and Herzegovina. But the problem here is that these bilateral issues concerning the history and historical identity of the nation to become a subject for veto. This is a problem, and this is not a European principle. So what we want, just to come to your question for our plan, we are waiting for the political government in Sofia, because we know that there is no, for the time being, political government. They had 7 elections. We hope that very soon that they will establish a new government. Even if they don't establish a political government, we are willing to talk to the president, different personalities who are powerful and influential in Bulgaria, to get into the dialogue and to settle these issues, because it is not only the question of Bulgaria. There is no a question of only Bulgarians becoming, let's say, part of the constitution, or preamble of our constitution, but and it is not a problem for Macedonia, for North Macedonia at all. We know that we are, the champions of minority and human rights, as being one of the countries in Europe which is really championing human rights, and we have so far not only 6 communities, so-called, and nations, people, ethnicities within the constitution, but really their languages are also official in the municipalities where they have the majority. So we really respect minority rights. So the Bulgarians becoming part of the constitution is a really easy task to do. Tomorrow we can do it. The parliament has 80. Now the majority in the parliament, but also the opposition is in favor. So we have the majority of 80. The problem is the day after. The day after, according to the treaty that we signed with Bulgaria and all of these protocols, is saying that because there is a joint intergovernmental session that should be held each and every year to assess how we are making progress in the Joint Committee on Education and History. So because this Joint Committee on History and Education doesn't have any progress, so they will immediately make a decision that we are violating actually the protocols, that we are violating the negotiating framework and council conclusions, and we are not eligible to open a chapter or to close any chapter. So it is very obvious. It is very predictable. I don't know how can not you, but all of political elites whom we speak to European Union, they understand us. But the problem is sometimes they are trying to. Of course, Bulgaria is inside. We are outside. They have to be to show solidarity with their member country, which we understand. But in the end, we need to find a solution in the dialogue with Bulgaria. And we think that there are also political and liberal forces in Bulgaria that understand the issue, and that they should approach them in a goodwill. We should be neighbors for good. We are not only neighbors to become members of European Union, but we should be neighbors for good and having a good relations between each other. And we think that with this goodwill, we can overcome the issue in the near future.
Thank you. Before I open the panel for comments and questions from the public, I would like to put another question to Ambassador Rokas. What is your view on the current stalemate of the accession process of North Macedonia? We said there is a deal on the table, but according to the statements we've already heard the Deputy Minister, it is not acceptable for the current government here.
Well, I will say that I have the advantage of being totally new into the region, or having more than 20 years career in Asia Pacific. So coming into it, I can only tell to you that this is the moment, and reiterate what you mentioned, that is the moment of opportunity. We have the momentum for enlargement is there. And the way that I understand is there is no picked candidates. They are all equal in front of this opportunity. And I think from the European side, there is unwavering commitment to enlargement of Western Balkans plus Ukraine and Moldova. So this opportunity should not be missed. This is my view. And the timing is now. Now I heard you very carefully, but what is also clear is that there is EU Council conclusions, and also the spokesperson, I think on 2 occasions in the latest days, the European Commission has said that we are ready to open the clusters once the constitutional amendments are approved. That said, member states, they discuss. The only thing I can say is that we have heard all these arguments, and the only thing that we can do, it is from the EU side to prepare, not only with our teams, but also across all ministries. We have the new growth plan, the growth agenda. We have IPA 3. We need to be ready to respond. And we want to go ahead. This is not linked, of course, but we need the momentum. So I think the only way to achieve results, it is by having belief, and it's still belief. And what I can say is that just refer to the speech of President von der Leyen and at the Bled Forum. And I'm pretty sure that when she visits the country later on this month, she will reiterate not only, and I would not call it the generous offer of the EU, but the reform plan on top of the Western Balkan Investment Facility would bring the Western Balkan partners at par with the EU cohesion funds. So it is a real response. So, as you said, any enlargement process is with many bilateral issues and open and maybe painful and difficult decisions. But at least what I can assure the government and the people here is that from our side, we do everything to be ready for it.
Only one sentence.
Thank you. Yes, please.
Plan, which I missed to address, actually. It is a very important instrument for us. And it is not connected to the beginning of the negotiations in the European Union, but it is connected to reforms that the government should be making. And it's a very good tool, actually, for exercising the gradual, somehow the gradual accession to the European Union, how the societies and all of the problems that they are facing actually in a sense of changing because in the past years we had really problems in the judiciary, so we have to do these judiciary reforms to implement the rule of law. We were also doing bad in the administration reforms. So we are planning now. We are having this roadmap, which will be adopted in the European Commission as well. So how to reform the administration, and also to strengthen the capacity of the country in a sense of how to manage the funds that are coming from European Union, because we lack also this institutional capacity. And we hope that this growth plan will help a lot in this respect and will prepare the countries to become members. So we are thankful about this to the European Union.
Thank you. Would you like to comment on maybe how has Lithuania overcome its bilateral problems during the accession process?
We put aside them.
But not you, maybe the
Together.
other.
What about the
Together.
other side? Did the other side
Together.
put it aside?
But
That's different.
I think that there is a.
But all the other countries were also candidate countries. They were
Yeah,
not
that's a big
member
difference.
states. Yeah.
So we had a mutual interest to move the process. But listening to the current situation, I was thinking about it. I think European politics or Brussels place is a unique place where you come in with your national positions and with your red lines, knowing that you will be making compromises. So this is the life in Brussels. This is how we make European politics. I mean, this is how we were negotiating all the legislation. We don't like, we not always like everything 100%. And we need to sacrifice and we need to make compromises. This is what we were doing for years in Coreper's councils. And we usually don't like what the Commission is proposing, but this is the entire game, how things are happening in Brussels. Parliament doesn't like what the member states are doing, what the Commission is doing, but this is how at the end of all these negotiations, the compromise is being born. So I think a huge responsibility now lies on the shoulders of all sides of diplomats, because they need to talk to their capitals. They need to talk to their politicians that red lines is not the way to move ahead. Then we'll have a stalemate. Then we'll have the same story what we have for 10 years before.
Thank you very much. So we have approximately 20 minutes for comments and questions from you, ladies and gentlemen. I saw the German ambassador raise the hand. Please, in the second row, Petra Drexler, the German ambassador to North Macedonia.
Yeah, thank you very much. And thank you very much to this very interesting panel. I thought it was a very encouraging discussion. And I would like to go back to something that you, Vasko, said in the beginning when explaining the topic of this discussion. You mentioned that enlargement is probably the most interesting of these three topics for North Macedonia. I was surprised by that because when I looked at the title, I thought it's all interesting because it all has a transformative power. Enlargement has, migration has, and sanctions have. Both in all our countries who are already member states. And I think it also has a big impact here. And then Deputy Minister Dimitrovski, you said in between that some people here think the EU doesn't have that transformative power any longer. Maybe
I said the enlargement process itself, the negotiating process, because we have countries which are 10 years negotiating and nothing has transformed there.
well,
If you agree with me.
I don't.
So not the enlargement. The
This
enlargement
is-
has a very good transformative capacity. Cohesion funds also rule of law, human rights, market economy itself, enlargement itself with the cohesion funds, yes. And this growth plan, I hope, will have a great impact on transformative. Will have this transformative power.
Vice Minister Šatūnas in the beginning mentioned that this transformative power basically came by the supremacy of rule of law. And I think that was something that is very true. And if you look at it from that angle, then maybe it's not neither the European Commission nor the accession process. It's something that comes from the country, from inside the transformation. In my country, in Germany, people wouldn't like to talk about transformative power of the EU, because then you have the suspicion that this is patronizing and people don't want to have dictates from Brussels. So whatever happens because we compromise, because we have these long discussions, and because in the end we as member states want to achieve something and have the same objective. So I personally truly believe that it is this joint objective and the common goal that brings all this transformation about. And I was very encouraged also to hear that North Macedonia and Lithuania will engage in a closer political consultation, because I think that this kind of information sharing between countries is something very European, to learn from each other's experience. So for me, I take home from this discussion that there's no stalemate, but there obviously are joint interests in bringing this process a little bit further. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador. Who is next? Please. Would you?
Good evening.
Yes.
Good evening. I'm Berin Muhammad, the president of the Union of High School Students of North Macedonia. And I had a question for the EU ambassador. What steps is the EU planning to take to accelerate North Macedonia's candidacy process, and how can young people in our country contribute to demonstrating our readiness for EU membership?
Well, we will stay for a long time because actually there is no ministry that I have visited so far in 1 month that I've been in the country where we have not identified priority areas, and we see how we can correspond the available funds and which tools are best to support North Macedonia in this endeavor. But since you speak about youth, most definitely the discussions that I had so far with the ministers of education, but also digitalization, are essential in this regard. The thing is that it is not enough that schools and universities produce talent. The thing is how to retain talent, and how talents will have immediate access to the markets and will have competitive salaries and will contribute to this transformation, because North Macedonia is sitting at crossroads, north-south, east-west. It has a lot of power to attract FDI, foreign direct investment. It has a lot of potential still. So, all these pieces of the puzzle, we have not managed to put them together yet. And a lot of times, maybe I have to say, and I have to admit that our existing tools, they are perhaps rigid, like the IPA mechanism. I'm not making criticisms here of the IPA mechanism, but
you are entitled to, you should.
Yes, but what I mean is that we are looking constantly of how to improve, how we can enhance this capability. So actually, this is the areas that we want to focus, but then also we want to encourage the debate. And the debate with the youth and, let's say, the network of Europe houses that we have here in the country are in 8 altogether. It is a good area for dialogue. But, you know, dialogue, it's a very good thing. Exchange on ideas is a very good thing. But the thing is how we can transform this dialogue into action. And how also we can sensibilize, even in our meetings with the government or even the opposition, how they can support your pleas and your ideas. So what at least we have managed, but this is not only with our team in the EU delegation, but with the EU member states embassies present here, is that we are extremely sensitive in this area, how not only to create, but retain talents here. So I think that we are going now to focus in this area of prime interventions, including also with the growth plan and IPA 3. So you should feel confident, on the one hand, to speak out through your forums and your representatives, but also that the focus will be in these key areas, because we need to prioritize education and youth and digitalization. So that means that what connects all the dots is definitely there. I mean, infrastructure and networks, they have to be there. They are strategic. They will be there. But this is especially on the soft issues that we need to invest more.
Thank you. Mr. Šatūnas, what is the Lithuanian experience in terms of people that have left the country in the past? Are there examples of people who are coming back, turning back now to Lithuania?
Actually, when the representative of the students asked this question, I was thinking what I would answer for you, actually. And I think the answer is that, yes, in the beginning, when we joined European Union, we had a huge immigration wave. We had before, when we became independent, so a lot of young people, they were economic migrants. They were leaving Lithuania for a better economic life in UK, in Spain, in Ireland. But now for the last 2-3 years, we have already a positive immigration. So people are returning. People from the ones that emigrated to Lithuania 20 years ago, 16 years ago, they are now coming back. And also the students who went to study into UK or Netherlands, they are coming back. They are coming back to start their careers in Lithuania. Why? Because I think they have opportunities. And let's say Lithuania, we have a first unicorn in Lithuania already. And that unicorn, they don't want to leave Lithuania. They were created in Lithuania, grew to unicorn. They're a huge company, Vinted. So, but they don't want to leave. Why? Because I think, again, the consequences of joining European Union 20 years ago. Rule of law, business environment, fight the corruption. And that is the things that are keeping the investors in Lithuania. You can imagine that our neighborhood is not easy. On one side, we have Kaliningrad. On another side, we have Belarus. Then close is Russia. So if you would be, how to say, a businessman, you will calculate if the business environment is not stable, if the corruption is high, and then you have neighbors a little bit, not a little bit, aggressive and unpredictable. So why to invest there? So the only value added to invest is the stability and internal market, really functionality of internal market. I remember back in 2014, when Russia started first blocking exports of agricultural goods into Russian market from our agricultural producers, because for many years, Russia was a big market for our agri people. But then they started blocking, and our guys started looking more to turn into internal market of European Union. And now we have companies who are growing up salads in Lithuania and sending salads to Italy, because you have a lot of water, good climate, and the same single market and easy, cheap movement of goods. So they're not anymore interested in going and exporting goods into Russia where you can have a better probably profits up to 20%, but you have a huge corruption. So why to do that? And now with Russia, it's all over. So what I'm trying to say, the decisions made 20 years ago now are bringing the results. People are starting to come back because they have a good, stable business opportunities.
Do you have any statistics?
I do not have statistics with myself, but there is a plus, definitely plus.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. The young. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Dimitar. I'm from the Youth Educational Forum. My question is to the EU ambassador. I want to hear comments on the ever-growing narrative that this country should flirt with the idea of economic cooperation with other not so friendly to the EU countries like China, like maybe Russia. And what do you think about that, especially regarding what you said with the exchange of ideas, implementation, and the force that can have on a country's political and ideological system?
Well, the first thing to applaud in any discussion in this country is the full alignment with the EU's positions. Not only with regard to the CFSP, as we call the foreign security policy, but also increasingly on defense, and we have new partnerships. And the offer, what the EU, I mean, you spoke so eloquently, and the Vice Minister as well. The EU brings tremendous benefits, and everyone who is part of it or it was in the process of becoming, they saw and they feel it. And in any society where values the rule of law, there is no corruption, there are opportunities, there is a very strong and robust market, internal market. I think this is all what, let's say, at this moment, countries like Russia are after, the EU's prosperity. So I cannot imagine what it could be the alternative offer that these countries would have to offer, not to North Macedonia, but in general, because as we see with coercion and aggression and war, and by putting out of rails or derailing multilateralism and any process, whether it is at the UN, it could be a viable offer. But that we know also at the same time, there is a huge campaign of misinformation, and citizens are vulnerable to it. And a lot of times with also the new methods of artificial intelligence, deep fakes, they can be having convincing arguments. But I strongly believe that, especially now, we had also this discussion that what is on the table at this moment for North Macedonia is equivalent to what EU member states have through their cohesion policy, so internal policy. And this is also a proof that, as you said, there must be the feeling that so many years in the waiting, and we have been not seeing tangible results. We have now offered this transformative, I will use the word agenda of the growth plan, with gradual integration into the internal market. So I think that wherever I go and wherever I'm posted in the world, I would almost never argue against. You can say a lot of things about the European Union, maybe sometimes it's slow to take decisions, but the prosperity brings to the citizens and all countries that they want to have association with, and I'm not talking only about enlargement, they still stick to it. So I think that the offer is honest, is big, it is transformative, is far-thinking, and you have 27 EU member states and teams of all the embassies here to put it into action.
Thank you. Please.
Yeah, I just wanted to add one thing. I, in principle, believe that there is no free cheese. And you need to pick up the fights and your priorities. Because I can tell you from our history, still until 2014, Lithuania, because again, a legacy of being occupied by the Soviet Union, our energy system was fully integrated in the planned energy economy of Soviet Union. So what does it mean? That meant that we have only one oil pipeline, and not only oil itself origin was coming from Russia, but the pipeline was the only one. So we were getting oil from Russia. Then we had only one gas pipeline, and the origin was Russian. And then the electricity systems were also fully integrated. So what we have now, we have our separate oil import terminal, we have our LNG floating terminal, and our electricity system fully decoupled from the Soviet dependencies. Next year, we will fully desynchronize from the Russian system. It took, well, 15 years to take decisions, but we took it and we have now results. Today, there is still not a one member state in European Union, especially one member state, which is permanently crying loudly, saying that we are dependent on the only one supplier. And we need, that's why exemptions, but the prices are going, inflation is high. So where is the problem? It's your problem that you have not made political decisions 15 years ago. And these dependencies, they will be just used and misused. So the best thing is really to create a competition and a functioning market in all the things. So what China and Russia is doing, they're clearly trying to challenge what we're trying to create. We're trying to create alternatives. So I think that politicians of all member states, of all the candidate countries, has to be very smart and to explain to their people where is really the devil is in the detail. Because it seems very nice and attractive in a short term to have something attractive, which is less price, better quantities, opportunities. But in the longer run, you will probably get into the situation where one member state is now in. They are dependent, simply dependent. And that's why they're challenging the entire, even the sanctions policy.
Yeah, if I can add to this issue, actually, also the first question about the youth having a perspective to live in this country, because today we've heard the state auditor, his report was that around 2,500 high educated young people leave Macedonia leave North Macedonia each and every month. So we think that this is an alarming issue. So being a problem of all the governments, for the government and opposition, and for each political force in North Macedonia. So, so what is the goal of this government? Not only also this growth plan and reforms that we are trying to. So we adopted actually on the government session the reform agenda for the growth plan, but. This is on one side. On the other side, we are trying to make aware all the countries in the European Union, which we are going to become member of, and also the countries of NATO, because we are also a NATO country. Some countries that became NATO members only because of that doubled their economy, doubled their foreign investments, but we haven't done it yet. It was also a huge problem with the former government that we didn't attract too many foreign investments. Now, this government is having a very clear plan and vision how to attract foreign investment, first of all. So there will be packages on lowering the taxes. We are also taking advantage of not being a European country and still having industrial-free zones. Because there are some laws in the European Union that will be later on a problem for running this kind of free industrial zones. But so we will be attracting foreign investment. We are also planning to do a lot of infrastructure projects, because what is problem in general in Western Balkans, it's that countries are not connected well. So no railway tracks, no roads, not good roads. So you can travel from Skopje to Sofia for 4 or 5 hours still. and also other Balkan capitals. So we want we need to be partners actually with European Union member states in this respect as well, for their investors to come and to invest not only in the economy but also in the infrastructure projects. We are, as a government, we are also planning. Actually, there are two high-level foreign investments into the energy sector, which is very important. We are energy-dependent country in terms of electricity, first of all, which is very important for the citizens. So we are planning to. There is already announced investments in the windmill energy and also in photovoltaic energy. And in next 3 to 4 years, we should become energy self-sufficient country. So it's these investments in the economy and in the improving of the living standard of the people can also contribute to the youth, to young people, to retain them in the country. We know that Europe needs also our young people to be their workforce and their intellectuals who will run the businesses in Europe, but we also need them here. So we will try our best to keep them in the future. And we think also Europe can help us in this respect.
Thank you. And one more question, the young lady over there, and we're gonna wrap up the session. Yes.
Thank you. So my name is Tiffany Spirovska. I come from the Westminster Foundation for Democracy, and I mainly cover the youth portfolio. So now I was provoked when we opened the youth aspects from this discussion. So thank you, Beren and Dimitra from EF. It was quite refreshing to hear some positive experiences. Maybe I should stand up. It was quite refreshing to hear some positive experiences from Lithuania that you shared for young people that don't want to leave the country, or maybe young people who would return to the country. Unfortunately, the data we have here, or the freshest data we have here on youth social political participation, shows that 8 out of 10 people would leave the country if they have the chance. And also the Deputy Minister for Foreign Affairs mentioned in numbers how much that is. And even if you calculate that from the investment in young people we make, how much the country actually is losing. And that's on one hand, why young people are decided to leave, and they leave because they are just looking for more prosper, and they see themselves somewhere abroad in more developed societies. If we take a look in what young people believe and what are their perceptions and how do they see the society around them, we see how the gaps in the educational system are reflecting in our society. And I'm very happy that the cooperation with the Ministry of Education was mentioned here, and that the EU delegation in North Macedonia actually cooperates with the Ministry of Education, because our analysis also show that we have a serious gap that it's threatening the society later on, because we have young people that don't understand the EU accession process, and that brings about disappointment, first of all. And we have an educational system that leaves young people out of clarity of what their role in the society is and what their expectations towards the institutions should be. And to sum up these findings, I would like to ask you, how do you see the political education and the democratic education in this entire process? How do you see the role of the institutions? Is there willingness and understanding of the importance of the political education and democratic education in general, and its importance in how we raise our generations, I would say? And lastly, how do you see the role of the European Union in general in this process? I understand that educational policies are mainly something that should be nationally solved, so it's not really a question of international influences, so to say. Yeah, but I think that our situation doesn't really allow us anymore to treat that as a strictly national question, I would say. So yeah, my question would be directed to the EU ambassador. Yeah, thank you.
Yes, I'm popular, but of course,
You're a star. You're a star. You'll have a great time.
yes, yes. Well, obviously, for education, the best, because it's national policies that they inspire. But what you said, and I'm not going now to enumerate the projects that we have or the Erasmus or the exchanges, all this is well known. So I'm not going to waste time. But what you raise is something of significance. It is about civility, how you create the citizens of tomorrow. So this is the national authority and the education minister that needs to bring, and it's not a question what the EU brings. So the youth knows in advance and see the opportunities. It is to be embedded across the board. Because, of course, and I will go one step back, it all starts also with family as you grow, and then school, and then universities, and then postgraduate. So every level and every layer is important. So, and we have seen, at least when you try to do one of the most sensitive areas where countries, they have major difficulties in is to educational reforms. And a lot of times we see there are strikes.
The most important, actually.
Exactly, it's the most important. You need to start from there. So I felt, at least at the first meetings that I have, that all this is well the focus of the current minister and the government. And I think there will not be any opposition to that. And I would rather, I would say, but this is a personal comment, I would rather, it's not like we need to put EU education or EU integration education as such in order to make it more popular. No, this about the EU has to come from the education system itself. So as we become, and then we see in the what era we live, what are the challenges, what are the threats? We are facing existential threats. So, and on the top, we have the issue of competitiveness. We have the next generation EU, a massive insertion of 1.7 trillion euros into the economy, and we are still, there are still problems. And the Draghi report, I invite you to read, at least a summary, it's 400 pages. I haven't read 400 pages myself either. But no, but it is many things that we need to connect the dots. So the question is, we cannot do it without the young generation. We need to respond because, and to also refer a little bit to the questions before, I sense, and I spent 4 years in Malaysia, wherever the EU or the so-called West or the global North fails is good for them, even if they have nothing to offer, whoever are the competitors. So I saw it pragmatically, practically. And we know a lot of times the string attached to their type of assistance. So I wouldn't like to go there. So there's no way that the EU needs to become better. It has to become more agile, more quick, more smart. But at the end of the day, the European Union is the art of compromise, of difficult sometimes decisions, but there is no other way around. And maybe as a very last comment is that this war, and the wars now that proliferating in our neighborhood, has transformed already the EU. I mean, decisions, if you would ask me, I do this profession for 30 years. If you would ask me 5 or 7 years ago whether we will have a European peace facility and we will use lethal weapons, in Ukraine, whether we would have this next generation EU, whether we would be able to do this type of decisions, I would have said no. It was not mature. You couldn't see that. So I think the European Union has the ability of reinventing itself, a lot of times out of crisis and necessity, but obviously, and this has nothing to do with my job, I don't see any better alternative to the European Union and the European Union integration and enlargement, of course, to North Macedonia.
If I may reflect just one sentence, because the word compromise was mentioned many times, and it seems like if someone tries to say that the current government of North Macedonia is not making compromises, it's not true. We are very ready to make compromises also with our neighbor Bulgaria on the issues that affect us. And it is not only that we are proposing different solutions on the problem that we are facing with them, but also we have other diplomats and foreign actually from strategic partners of North Macedonia who are helping us in this respect to create and to design creative solutions to the problem. And we already discussed them. So it doesn't mean that we are not making any compromises to start the negotiations with the European Union. But we are just stating that how actually the whole package, how it looks like now, is not acceptable for us, and we have to negotiate about its implementation, the package implementation.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. We have to wrap up the session here. Unfortunately, the Bulgarian ambassador left. I don't know why. It would have been interesting to hear him, but nevertheless, thank you, gentlemen, for participating in this discussion. Ladies also and gentlemen, also thank you for being present here. I think that we had very interesting, open, honest discussion. Me personally, I enjoy it. I believe all of you also did enjoy the discussion. I would like to extend my special thank to our guest from Lithuania, the Vice Minister, and I wish you tomorrow successful opening of the office of the embassy. Thank you, everyone, again.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Vasko.
My